So if you'll take a second, look at the plan.
Well, you will see what I see. And that's money.
Not our money.
Oh, mama, I'm in fear for my life from the long
Baby, where are you going?
This gold business wrote me off years ago. But it's amazing how little gold dust can just change everything.
Damn it, Kenny.
Lawman is putting into my running, and I'm so far from my home.
Mike Akasha.
What are we talking about?
I had a dream.
Right here.
Indonesia.
That's where we'll find the gold.
Hangman is coming down from the gallows, and I don't have very long.
Wait! We found nothing and the workers are leaving. Wait.
Kenny, look. We got a gold mine. We gotta go mine.
We gotta go, mama. We gotta go,
Yeah, for better or worse, the ride had begun. And what a ride.
I never doubted you for a second.
This is Ryan Wolf in New York.
They were coming at me from all sides.
We believe you're sitting on the largest gold find of the decade.
We're talking over $30 billion.
Washoe Mining turned into a rocket ship.
What else could a deal?
Who could have deal with him?
This isn't a deal.
No boats. No deal.
Open it. A lot of very powerful people are very angry.
The military is taking over the mine.
These people are using you.
They can't just steal it away.
This is the FBI!
The gold is mine. I found it.
And the only question I'm left with is, how did $17 billion disappear overnight?
I don't have very long.
Give it up one more time from the people from Gold. Let's hear it. Guys, congratulations. What a movie. What a performance. What performances. What an incredible director that you have here. I don't know if you guys know who Stephen Gaghan is. He is the Oscar-winning writer of Traffic and a wonderful director at the same time. Thank you so much for being here, you guys.
Our pleasure, our pleasure.
Matthew, I just asked you this back there. You're credited as a producer on the film. The film started with you, I guess, in development. You developed the material, and then you brought it to Stephen. How did it come to you? What inspired you about it?
Teddy Schwartzman had it at Black Bear for a while, and it came to me through him. I got attached. We went down the road of trying to find the right director for a couple of years. Stephen and I were actually meeting on another project of something he had written, and then we were like, that's a great idea. And Stephen got it in his hands, and his story is 4 pages in, he was in. I'm betting you read most of it before you decided that, but then we were happy to get him, and like a lot of people, it was like, what have you been doing the last 10 years?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question. I didn't want to be the assumptive one to ask the question. Where have you been, Stephen?
Just been napping. Like, I love
Having lots and lots of children and raising them.
You're one of our best. It was sad to not have you around for a little bit.
You know, Matthew asked me that same question when I met him in his office at his house down in Texas. He was just like, we're having a great conversation, and he had literally become inhabited by the character. He was already riffing as Kenny, and I was writing down everything he said, and we were having a good old time. And then he just looks at me, he's like, why haven't you made a movie in 10 years? And I was like, I didn't want to make a bad one. And that's the truth. And I had 4 kids, and I was raising them. And when the choices go off and make something you don't think's quite ready versus staying home with your 2-year-old, it's like I'm out. So
We're glad you're back.
Absolutely.
I'm back.
Matthew,
I wasn't really napping.
What was it about Kenny that inspired you?
I fell in love with this guy and the humanity of him from the first read, quicker than any other character I've ever read. There's a purity of this guy. As you see in the movie, I think it's best set up of a guy that this dreamer who has no trouble turning down $300 million to buy his company out because they took his name off of it, but sweats in his boots and is really nervous when he's got to go in front of his peers to win Prospector of the Year. That was a point where I was like, look at the purity of the soul of this man. Also, he's a great American archetype. And he's not the guy that is the lead in most stories that we see in cinema or television. He's usually the sidekick to the sidekick. And he's a guy at the bottom of the barrel who literally has a dream, hawks his girlfriend's watch and gets a one-way ticket to Indonesia to make that dream happen and come true. It's a lot about story about loyalty. It's a story about resilience. And it was a guy who, to use a football term, throws about 5 Hail Marys and catches his own ball and survives it.
And it's also a story about capitalism to a certain degree, in the sense that this is a man whose dream is to actually make something of the work that he's going to put into it, and he sort of ends up coming up against those who just want to buy the work that somebody else did. Was that something that you?
Well, it's different. It's different than being about greed, and it's different than being. I think capitalism would even be too small of a word for it. The second half, once he has the money and people want it, does become more about capitalism. But there's a great scene in the film where Kitty's saying, "Hey, gold's different. I never cared. I never gave a damn about the money. It was the gold." And what is the gold? The gold is keeping the company alive in his family lineage. The gold is pulling it off. The gold is, by any means necessary, proving them all wrong. The gold is the chasing of the dream. You know, if you get to the end of the movie, Steve and I talked about it, and I thought many times, it's like, you know, without giving the end away, whether he made the money or if he didn't, I don't know if his reaction would be much different. If he got all the gold or he didn't. I don't know if he would really react any differently.
I had my own questions about the ending, but I'm not going to bring them up on the stage here. It's slightly ambiguous, though. Is it meant to be ambiguous, or was I misreading it, Stephen?
No, it's 100% designed to be a little bit ambiguous.
Okay, thank you. Bryce, talk to me about your character in the film. You're not just the kind of stand-by-your-man woman that we see in films like this, which is so wonderful. She is a fully developed three-dimensional character who does also have, as we see near the end, like a stand-by kind of mentality a little bit at the same time.
Yeah, I remember when I read this script, and I kind of thought of Urban Cowboy and Deborah Winger, and just like the intensity of the passion for that those characters had for one another. And
Can I ask, is that where the hair kind of came from?
Yeah, exactly, and the crazy hair. But it's, I mean, I think that she's sort of this person who has found gold in her own life. Like she feels safe, she feels happy. Like one of the first lines about Kay in the script was that Kay's pants were too tight, but only because she was happy. And so you know, to be with someone who is reaching, who doesn't feel like they've achieved the dream yet, who feels like their best days are ahead of them, you know, that's there are a lot of couples like that, and that's what this couple is like as well. And I like as well that it's not her always going back to him, it's him always going back to her.
Was that originally part of the script, him always going back to her, or did you guys end up sort of changing that and working it around a little bit? Because usually in scripts, I'd say it is always the woman going back to the man, or he goes back once and he's forgiven very quickly and she goes along for the ride. How did you guys talk about the character?
It was always like this, really. And the great thing, I mean, what Bryce does in this movie, that hopefully you all see it, is she's able to convey this enormous strength and yet love for this man who has some flaws, you know. He doesn't look like the normal Matthew McConaughey. And she does it, I mean, the way she conveys this intensity of feeling and this strength behind it, you know. There's this moment I talk about a lot, the very end of the movie, and Matthew is, I don't want to give too much away, but he's standing outside a door and she's looking at him through this screen door. And that look, I mean, it speaks 500,000 words. It's like a novel in a look, you know. And Bryce brought that to like.
I'm available for work in 2017 and 2018.
Bryce brought that to so many of those scenes, like you've seen the movie, like the way she looks at him across the bar, like when he's getting interviewed by the journalist and he's making it, how she looks at him, and that the nuance to that pride. It's wonderful.
These are
wonderful
really
acting.
specific people. Like these are real. Kind of, it represents a certain time in America, the 1980s, a specific kind of localized area. You know, it takes place in Reno, and it is about dreamers, and it is about the cost of dreaming and what it takes to dream, and then what happens when you get everything you dreamed of, or so you thought.
Edgar, your character, you know, I don't want to give anything away at all, but your character is in many ways a question, or he becomes something that you never see coming. And I'm wondering how you tailored your performance to that early on in the movie, because you know as an actor that your character is going to become something else, but how do you sort of, if I go back and watch the movie, am I going to sort of see elements of your performance early on that are going to make everything even make more sense when we get to the end?
Yeah, well, it was very interesting to play him because I mean, if you look closer, and I don't want to give out too much because I want people to enjoy the film, and I'm not gonna give too many details. But
I basically just told people that there's a surprise with your
there's
character.
There's a surprise, and he's
Lots
a
of twists
mystery, a
and
lot of twists and turns, and basically this is a character that lives in the memories of another character, which is Matthews. So in the end, we don't really know whether everything that is narrated in the film happened in the way it was described. So we don't really even know if my character was like that, if existed in the way that it's described. And that was that gave him an epic element and a very classic element that was it was fun to play. And of course, as Matthew said, the loyalty and the friendship, this is a partnership that then suddenly turns into a friendship. And what I love is the fact that we never had that introspective moment when you say, you know, my dad one day did this to me, and that's why I turned out this way. We never had that moment. I mean, the movie is very classic in the way that the relationship between us is built on experience, you know, and then suddenly we trust each other, which I love. You know, I love that. And yeah, this is a way to kind of talk about my character without really talking about.
Well, I think, and the sentimentality between your two characters sort of hits you in a very surprising way. There's the great line where you say, "Oh, I didn't think you could make it." In the hotel in that moment, and I didn't see that coming at all, and I was suddenly struck by, oh, these guys are really close friends now. It was really emotional. It was a great moment to just have that line tailor that emotion very quickly, and then the movie moves on. It's beautiful. Matthew, Stephen said, you know, this isn't your typical Matthew McConaughey character. He doesn't look like Matthew McConaughey. You've kind of, since Dallas Buyers Club, it seems, to a degree, been almost like, I don't know if obsessed is too strong of a word, but maybe obsessed with playing a different version of you, or completely different than what people expect of you, at least physically.
I'd say, to use the word obsessed, I've looked at it in a different way. I've been enjoying finding characters that have clear obsessions, but I'm not obsessed with finding characters that sort of warrant or give you the chance to go as mentally, spiritually, and physically committed as I got to go with this. Just understood him from the get-go. I think if I look back, I've had a lot of characters that I like to see a clear obsession. I like to see someone who's been an outcast, who feels like it's them against the world, who makes up their own rules, who believes in something and goes and somehow, by hook or by crook, makes it happen. And that's just what the Kenny Wells afforded me to do, and it makes it so much fun in our jobs when you get to commit on all three of those levels: the mental, spiritual, and the physical. And not every role calls for it, so you know, I'm not like looking for something extra to do. But the Kenny Wells that I grew up around and met through my father, and even the real guy David Walsh, was quite thick.
Is it fun to commit to it physically? I mean, you gained 45 pounds.
Oh, it's a blast, dude. I mean, on a very simple level.
Was it yummy?
Yeah, he had the time of his life.
Here for 6 months.
I was there.
Is really fun. I've never done that. Or I said, you have one rule that you have to do for your job is say yes to any desire you have for 6 months. And if you second guess yourself ever, you must have double. That was fun.
How did you feel?
And you second guessed
I
yourself
felt
a lot.
great. I was concerned I was going to feel lethargic. I was concerned I was going to have trouble sleeping, breathing, what have you. I did not. I had great energy. I learned a lesson about indulgence. The only times that you feel bad about the indulgence, or the only thing that where overindulging would make you not feel good, is the only time that happens is when you're thinking about quitting. And so I had 6 months of never thinking about quitting.
You can't quit once the cameras are rolling and waiting.
No, it was fun.
Once he got into character, which involved a lot of milkshakes for breakfast, a lot of beer for breakfast, a lot of cheeseburgers for breakfast, and we got him completely made up in character. I snapped a photo and I sent it to my mother, who lives in Kentucky. I texted to her. And 1 second later, a text came back, and I could hear her voice. She said, "Oh, honey, what have you done to that beautiful man?" And I had this just enormous moment of self-doubt. I was like, oh, shit, what have I done or been a part of?
What did your family think?
My family loved it. I mean, my nickname in the household for this 6 months was Captain Fun, because I was the yes man. I mean, pizza night on Tuesday morning, yes. Go to the carnival at midnight on a school night, yes. I was saying yes across the board. I kind of miss Kenny sometimes. I know, Stephen, you and I've said
Don't
that.
we all?
My wife does too, a little bit.
Where did you guys shoot the Indonesia stuff?
Thailand.
In Thailand. And what was it like being in Thailand, shooting there? How long were you there?
Go, Stephen.
It was challenging. We got there. I was probably there almost 4 months, or maybe 3.5 months. But the principal experience of it was just you can't make it up. Like the whole time we were there because of the monsoon. We wanted the rain, the real rain. And the local people just looked at us like we were crazy. You're like, you don't want the monsoon. They kept looking up at the sky going, monsoon very late, and just super nervous. And we're like, yeah, where's that rain, you know? And the second day, it started to rain, and we were working. Edgar, Matthew, and I were working. And you watched this field slowly fill up with water. These water buffalo got happier and happier and happier. My kids, all of Matthew's kids were there. My kids were there. My kids are running around on the set like, you know, it's my 2-year-old on a water buffalo, you know? And so rained all night, came back the next day, and I went to look for our set. It wasn't there. Like, it just simply was not there.
It was there.
Yeah, the river had risen 35 feet overnight. And imagine this experience. I'm in a canoe, paddling, looking for the set that we've spent months building, because that's where we're going to work.
Basically every day.
Every day, 80% of and I'm like, where is it? I'm losing my mind. It was right here. And then I look down, and 6 feet under the water below the canoe, I can see the orange of the roof of the main set. And I'm like, uh-oh. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Matthew, how do you handle that as a producer on the project?
Well, I mean, that was a lesson. Mother Nature in Thailand initiated us very quickly. And so our schedule basically had to rip it up, and we knew we had to be very adaptable and dexterous from then on. I mean, we were all in. I think we made it happen, but it meant that other scenes that we would shoot in the rain, you'd start, and then the sun would come out, and you'd run over and start another scene that you were hoping would finish in the sun, and then it would start raining, and you'd run back and go finish the scene that you had in the rain, and you had to be loose. I mean,
these guys would hold 6 different scenes out of continuity in their head, and we'd have the set dressers running along with plastic bags to protect the clothes from the rain. You have to change continuity, change costume. We'd jump out of a boat. We'd be racing up the river because we'd have partial sun, or we'd have sun with it's raining with the sun out, or it's full thunderstorms. We'd race 3 miles down the river and start another scene. They'd hop out of the boat. Guys would be dressing them. We'd be rolling the cameras before the weather changed. Yeah. Get one side of it. Oh my God, the weather changed. Race back up the river. Do the
So it created a great mirror image between our own quest and struggle with the character struggle, because in the end we were struggling to get the movie made every day just as much as these guys were struggling to find gold. So in a way, we just used the character's line and turn on the camera to talk about our own tragedy that now is a wonder, because the movie
real
had
sense of urgency for you guys.
Definitely. I mean, we were just there. We were right we were in the right state of mind to play these characters, because there was nothing for us to make up. I mean, it was right there. You know, it was our own heart of darkness. We thought the heart attack. You know, so yeah, I think it really informed the film.
So 10 years
I shot
off,
at the Waldorf Astoria.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
FYI.
Yeah.
Kay was happy. I was happy. It was all good.
10 years off, Stephen, and you came back to a Heart of Darkness scenario. Welcome back.
I mean, thank you. When the floods receded and I saw what was left of all this we'd been working on, you know, and I looked at it, and I went out and I sat. I found there was a chair that had come from somebody's house 40 miles upriver, now sitting in the middle of our. I'm like, I sat in it, and this, you know, and I opened up. I had my script, and I was just looking around, you know, and I was like. And there's 500 of the Thai people are all standing off over there looking at me. And I'm just like, you better come up with something to say right now. And a butterfly landed on my shoulder, and everybody was like, oh, it's a butterfly. And I was like, see, the butterfly, we're gonna get this thing done.
And you did.
It was ridiculous.
It's amazing. Matthew, one of the things that, and you talked about the scene in the movie where he refuses the $300 million so that he can keep his name on it. And that's such a pivotal moment, because throughout a large portion of the beginning of the film, you think that he's just a man seeking to get rich. He's just he's a hustler looking to make a buck. And that's when you realize it's about so much more than that. Can you talk about crafting the performance a little bit and maybe even changing him a little bit at that moment so that it shifts for the audience?
Well, I mean, that is a pivotal scene for that reason. And I talk about the purity of this guy's spirit. He has no trouble, turning down the $300 million. And remember, he's coming from lineage. He inherited a very successful company from his father, who had inherited it from his own father. And 8 years later, he's run it into the ground. Partially his fault, I'm sure, and partially the economy's fault. And so he was on his last leg. Now he's made more money and superseded what his father and grandfather did. But again, it's not about that to him. So the pride and the question later on in the film is that was a very foolish thing to do, wasn't it? Well, no, not for Kenny Wells. It wasn't foolish at all. There was never a real question. Hopefully you think there may be a question when he has that drink and has the pause that Corey Stoll hands him the drink. But he was never going to do that if he took his name off of it. Like he says, well, you take my name off of it. What's his name? Mark Hancock gets his name on it. He goes off into the history books, and I'm the drunk who fell off the apple cart and got lucky. No, that's not going to be my history or my family's history. And so he says no to that.
Was there a part of you that related to that? And I hate to bring up even the phrase, the McConaissance that happened a few years ago, but when you sort of took the role in Dallas Buyers Club, you took the role in Wolf of Wall Street, and everybody referred to it as this McConaissance, and you'd sort of, according to them, turned your back on a certain type of big Hollywood romantic comedy, and we're doing these sort of, working with incredible directors and doing these, what people refer to as prestige movies, all of which have been, your track record since then has been unbelievable on these movies. Was there a part of you that felt that way about your career at that point as well? Did you relate to Kenny in that way?
I don't think directly. I think the narrative of this part of my career you're talking about, it fits the narrative better to say that was then, this is now. I switched gears for sure, but it wasn't like I all of a sudden got serious. You know what I mean? There's just as much time and work goes into those romantic comedies as does a feature like Gold. It's just a different kind of work.
Stephen, talk about the music that you use in the movie. I was sort of geeking out with you in the green room about this. An incredible 80s soundtrack. New Order, the Pixies, Joy Division, Orange Juice, right? Right.
We were like Orange Juice, deep cut, great record. Yeah, I mean, Big Dipper. I mean, you don't hear them a lot in movies, but I came of age in the 80s, I mean, maybe in some level that's the music you have the most intense relationship with, the Pixies. I mean, I saw them in concert probably 40 times, et cetera, et cetera. We got to do an original song with Iggy Pop, who, just brought it. He did the most incredible vocals. It was just one of the most fun things you can imagine, because you're just, I'm temping my favorite songs into a movie I love, and it's just a joy.
You're obviously a big music fan. What was it like with Iggy Pop?
Well, Iggy, I mean, first off, the thing I'm thinking of is this man invented stage diving. He's 69 years old. He just did 50 tour dates, and in those 50 tour dates, he staged over 30 times, and he's almost 70. So I'm thinking, what are you eating? I want to, but just the Stooges. The Stooges are just like all-time Hall of Fame, one of my favorite bands. That album Funhouse is just, it's like a masterpiece, right? And so obviously all the work he did with David Bowie, you're just thinking about it, and then you meet him, and he's the coolest guy you've ever met. He's so down to earth, And I haven't met a lot of people at that level of anything, and it's just the most regular, smart, interesting, cool guy, just like your friend, like you've been friends for a long time, no attitude, and then he just, in the studio, you're like, wow, you're an artist. And it was like the most fun I've ever had, basically, watching him sing this song that I had a hand in writing, so it was great.
So you go Funhouse for those first three Stooges albums. You stick with Funhouse?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Come on, TVI, let's go. What tops it?
Let's open it up to the audience for questions right here.
Hi, for each of you, what was your favorite scene to film in the movie?
For me, it was my father's hand scene that we were just talking about, because it was a real turning point in the movie, and it really kind of gets to the DNA of who the guy Kenny Wells was.
You're talking about in the middle of the film, when you not the opening scene.
No, the turning down of the 300 million. Yeah.
There's a scene where Kenny and Kay are reunited after a little while apart, and he's lying in bed surrounded by yellow roses in his underwear and a robe. And plus the 45 pounds that you gained, of course. Let's not forget about that. You brought that along.
Doing my best Burt Reynolds playgirl pose.
That was my favorite scene.
That was a fun scene.
There were two Matthew McConaughey's there. Two. You got two of them.
I could say that the scene where I get to hug and lift and carry Matthew in his white underwear when we strike gold, I could say that, but I won't.
Hey, come on, that would have been both people I work with saying favorite scenes were me in their underwear with them.
Exactly.
Matthew, I think you're like, this is not just us, this is not just this movie. Like, I think in every movie you take your shirt off, and I think a lot of people like the scenes where you're in your underwear.
He was wearing this Iron Maiden t-shirt that I would never forget, but I won't say that's my favorite scene. I think that my favorite scene is the bow tie scene. But that's as much as I can say, because otherwise we'll be giving away too much. But the bow tie scene, I think it's my favorite scene in the movie.
And the face that you make in those moments, I don't want to give anything away.
That's the only scene in the movie where my character opens up a little bit and kind of like lets out a little bit of his mystery to his best friend. So,
Stephen, what was your favorite scene to shoot?
It's very hard to choose. There were a lot of scenes in the movie that were just, you know, I'm kind of the first audience, you know, because I'm looking through the lens and I'm watching it, and a lot of times I was really happy. And but the one that just popped in my mind when you asked the question, because no one's asked that question, is the bow tie, the scene. It's basically one shot. I mean, I think really wonderful acting between these two guys. They run through almost like a gamut of emotions you can have as you make a friend as a grown-up. You know, it's hard to make friends when you become a man. You know, we make a lot of our friends when we're kids. It's a lot easier, and it gets harder and harder. And I think a lot of things are happening in that scene that are really, really interesting. In the camera language with Robert Elswit, the great DP, it just captures it beautifully, kind of in one shot, panning into a mirror. And then the other moment, really for me, is the moment that I talked about earlier, where Bryce opens the door to Kenny and the way she looks at him. And if you see the movie, you'll know what I mean, because honestly, the entire movie rests on that look. If it works, I think the movie works, and if it doesn't work, you know, we're in rewrite hell and trying to figure out what we're going to shoot. And so it's a big deal. And I was running around on the set. I was so... You've never seen a happier human, actually.
That whole scene is wonderful. All of the motions that they go through and the specific details of almost like getting back into the life.
It's so delicate.
It's so delicate.
I honestly, like, I don't want to, you know, it sounds like we're just like patting ourselves on the back and like log rolling and everything, but like, I hadn't made a movie in 10 years, so half the time I'm making it, I'm like, I just can't believe I'm standing there getting to watch these guys act. I'm like, wait a second, aren't I at home in bed asleep? Like, wait, am I here? Like, what's going on exactly, you know? And a lot of times I'm just like, they're like, what'd you think? And I just want to go, that was awesome! That was just so awesome! You know, I'm like, oh, wait a second, you gotta, okay, no, I don't know, I've got some notes, you know, I've got some notes, but I didn't have any.
Next question. Hey.
Hi. Your characters often act outrageously or irrationally in the film. How do you actors identify with a character that maybe behaves so differently than you would?
You know, there's a word that's thrown around a lot of times in our business. And go like, oh, you have to have sympathy for the character. I don't purchase that. Empathy, that's where it's at. Understand them. Our job is to, when we do it well, is to expose humanity. You know, Kenny Wells in his own POV doesn't think he's out of his mind. So I can pull some things off. You know, he thinks he's very much of this world. So to see those sort of maybe what some may say is eccentricities as almost pure survival mechanisms and who the person really is from the inside out, and just believe them.
It's fun. I mean, it's fun to go far. Like sometimes in movies in particular, you sort of feel like you need to be small and keep it really intimate, and sort of to be able to be fully free in a character where it's not like it wasn't about how big or how small or whatever something was. He was just a real person. He was like, he created a real human being who was that way, as we all oftentimes are. And then you get to a movie and you see kind of this like smaller expression of humanity when actually we are giants and we are crazy and we are expressive and dynamic. And so to get to be around a performance like that, it opens you up too, and it frees you as well. And I think it's fun. It's like as an actor, you get to like shake it out. It's really good.
Yeah, I think that also curiosity is a huge aspect. It's a huge element to this, to what we do. For me, in the case of Michael Acosta, he's a very lonely guy. And there's I don't know, the minute I read the script and the beautiful character that he wrote, because this story had a lot of different incarnations, you know. So when I read your script and I read Michael Acosta and his interaction with Kenny Wells, I don't know. I mean, for me, it was very appealing and interesting to go through the experience of being so lonely and then suddenly open up to someone. I mean, there's a sorrow like a stain, like something that he doesn't want other people to see. And without having to reveal that, without having to explain what that thing that he's hiding was, he opened up to him. You know, and as you said, I mean, you said it beautifully right now. When the older you get, the more difficult it is to make new friends, you know. And I'm very happy that, you know, I went to Thailand to shoot a movie and we gained friends, you know. And that's a beautiful thing. It happened.
That's for real. Like, I was saying that I have this experience of making this movie, and then, you know, you have a true emotional reaction when you think about seeing the people you worked with. You know, it can be up, it can be down, and, you know, and I was so happy, like, just even to come here and get to hang out, like, talk to them and, you know, see them. It's a nice feeling. But you ask a very, very good question from my perspective. First of all, the guys that wrote the screenplay of Gold, two writers named Masset and Zim, and Patrick and John, they did an amazing job. And so, really, I was 4 or 5 pages into the script, and they had created a unique American character, you know, almost to where I was asking myself, did I actually even capture it in my direction, you know, because they had such a voice of this guy down on his luck, working out of a bar in Reno. You know, I heard Matthew. It opened with this amazing monologue, and I was hooked right away because of the specificity and because I'd never seen that person before. And weirdly, when I was reading that, what popped in my mind are all sorts of strange images that I love. So I saw, you're going to think I'm crazy, Lawrence of Arabia, when Peter O'Toole finally gets the white robes and he checks himself out in the knife and he's dancing in the desert, and the way he dances is so weird. It's so out there. It's like, would a person really do that? And you kind of go, yeah, they would, but it's pushed, you know. I was thinking of like Dustin Hoffman in Midnight Cowboy, you know, which they say is an improv moment where he was walking across the street and they hadn't controlled traffic and the taxi cab almost runs him down and just without blinking goes, hey, I'm walking here, I'm walking. And you're like, I've never seen that guy, you know? And so the goal for all of these characters, but anchored by the Kenny Wells, is, you know, can we capture the fullness of someone who is not the usual person you see a movie made about? Doesn't have the usual hero arc. He has different things about him, you know, and that was one of the most exciting things. I mean, honestly, about making the movie, and, you know, who knows? Time will tell if we got it right. You know, history, really.
I think we have time for one more question. You.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
You are right behind me.
You.
You are creeping up.
You.
You all talked about the weather challenges that you all faced. Did that make it easier or harder for your characters?
Well, I mean, the easier for the characters because you don't have to do as much acting.
Yeah. Just have
you
to
know,
react.
Here comes the monsoon. That's real rain. We're gonna get wet. You know, there's a snake wrangler, but he's in the middle of the jungle. You know he can't find all the snakes.
They say, don't worry, the cobras are on that side.
Yeah.
There's no cobras here, so you can just walk.
So you're walking through.
We just made this little path for you guys to walk on, but don't worry, the cobras went that way.
They walk up a canyon that we had our snake wrangler walk. They had told me privately, there's a 30-foot snake that lives up there somewhere. I'm like, well, you know, this guy's not found a snake yet, but if there's a 30-foot snake there, I hope he can find it, you know?
At least while the camera's rolling. Right? No, but it makes it
so
easier.
glad I wasn't in that scene.
You react easier.
It was
because the
legit.
elements are there. I mean, each step I'm taking is Kenny Wells, who's out of place in the jungle. I'm real curious about what my next step is going to be. It's real sweat.
Do you have that moment as a director when you get told that there's a 30-foot snake? Like, I hope nothing happens to them, but I really hope we get it on camera as well.
Yeah, that's why we scheduled the I Touched the Tiger scene for the last scene in the film.
Was that really the last scene?
That last day of shooting.
McConaughey's footage is in the can. Something happens. Let's make sure we get it on the film.
Working with this tiger is fantastic because the tiger expert comes who lives year-round, 24 hours a day with this tiger, and he gave us a talk, like the tiger safety talk. And the tiger safety talk goes like this. This tiger is not an actor. This tiger is not your friend. This tiger is motivated by one thing and one thing only, and that is meat. The tiger will eat 26 pounds of meat that I have in a bag right here. When we run out of meat, he's out of work. And so you're just watching the meat dwindle. And I was like, well, can we get the tiger kind of riled up so it like really growls at him? And he's like, oh, you can. But that's the last shot. I'm like, all right, we'll save it for the last shot.
And I guess I would be remiss to not ask you what that was like, doing the tiger scene.
Well, you asked about weather in those scenes, and I said you don't have to act as much. I'm not acting in that scene. I'm scared.
Was it even written in the script that you're like, I'm touching a tiger? Or was that actually just you accidentally improvising?
I don't remember. There's other things in the movie that are even more NC-17.
He improvised that out and he improvised it in Thailand. And this line, I fell over dying laughing. I was just like, and then he goes, what did you say? I'll go 64.
Well, the deal was 80-15 that I agreed to, and then I touched the tiger and it says.
It's hilarious. I don't think we can say it. It's a little off color, but
you can.
I'll pull out my cock 60-40.
Yeah.
Guys, on that note, when can the audience see Gold?
January 27th.
January 27th. Gold is in theaters nationwide.
Yep.
It's so fantastic. Stephen, welcome back. Congratulations, guys, on a wonderful movie. Give
Thank
him a
you.
round of applause. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you.